Remember that player that Kenny Dillingham said he was going to go visit in El Paso after last week's win over Texas State? Yeah, he just committed.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be here to guide you for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrats36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Guys, big news. ASU has their first commit for the 2026 class. That's a big one. Quarterback Jake Fette out of Del Valle High School. I think it's Del Val in El Paso, Texas. He is a four-star quarterback. He is a top 15 quarterback. This is all according to 24/7, by the way. This is a top 15 quarterback in the country, a top 30 recruit in the state of Texas. And on 24/7, it is their number 195th overall player. And in the composite rankings, he is actually a top 20 Texas recruit, and he is the number 153rd overall recruit in the country. 6 foot, 190 pounds. Fette is your first commit for the 2026 class. Now, there were some questions that were to be had as far as the 2026 class goes, because there were quarterbacks that were flying off the board very, very quickly. And ASU wasn't really in the heat of it for any of these quarterbacks. And lo and behold, they're able to come out of the woodworks and grab themselves a pretty darn good one with Jake Fette. There was a lot of guys who went really, really quick. In fact, looking at the 24/7 spot right now, you have one quarterback, number 2, Ryder Lyons, who is not committed yet. But from my understanding, he's basically a sure thing at USC. It feels like that's been a thing for a while. Number 7, Landon Duckworth, is between UCF and South Carolina. And then number 13, Helaman Kasuga, currently has no crystal ball or anything. So ASU needed to get a quarterback, and they needed to get one quickly. When you are recruiting, you want a quarterback pretty much every year, because with the way the landscape has changed forever with the transfer portal, you're not guaranteed anything. You want a guy every single year. So 2026, and the guys are going like that, you're kind of sitting there in your ASU, and you're like, we got to get this. We got to get this done ASAP. Well, they get it done. Now, if you remember, I guess a little less than 2 weeks ago, like a week and a half, I guess, we're recording on Sunday. This was Friday. What did that end up being? The 13th? Yeah, that's right. Friday the 13th. Kenny Dillingham comes off of a big win over Texas State. They're 3-0. Kenny says, hey, I'm not going home yet. We're staying out in Texas. We're going to recruit. We are headed to El Paso. And you kind of sit there and you go, El Paso? Who's out in El Paso? And the speculation began. And Jake Fette was the one name that I saw get thrown around out there as someone that the team was interested in. So you kind of kept him on your radar, and you're like, okay, this is a good impression, and maybe it'll, go the right way with Fette as he's still feeling out his recruiting process. After all, it's 2026, so he's got a little bit to be able to make that decision. Well, whatever impression they left on him had to have been a strong one, because Fette is all in on Arizona State now, and this is a big, big deal for the Sun Devils to be able to land a guy like this. We're going to talk more in detail in just a moment about why this is such a big deal. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So much that when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Also want to talk to you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time now has a feature called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets easier than before for your favorite live events. That's not just football, by the way. That can be a little bit of everything. It's going to filter out the fluff and show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation makes it easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Their all-in pricing feature allows you to toggle it and show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what to expect when you arrive. My personal favorite feature here is their lowest price guarantee, which means Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Let's go ahead and wrap up this conversation now, talking about why this is such a big deal for the Sun Devils. And it's really very simple. ASU needed a quarterback. They got a quarterback. ASU is trying to flex its muscles in the recruiting world. This is a good way to do that. This will be Kenny Dillingham's fourth recruiting class because he had to recruit 2023 on the fly. 2023 ended up being pretty solid. Unfortunately, Jaden Rashada transferred after 1 year. The 2024 recruiting class, so far so good. You're getting good returns on some of the depth players that you have, and then you are stashing away your prized possessions, Jaden Fortier, who's recovering from injury, and Jason Brown, who is just in a really deep running back room, and having them for down the road. 2025 class, you're bringing in 2 4-stars with wide receiver Adrian Wilson and tight end AJ Aya. You also are bringing in another quarterback in Michael Butter Tollefson, who was a 4-star and has been moved down to a 3-star. He's all over the place in terms of his ranking, but last I checked, he's a pretty good quarterback. So ASU is doing a really good job with the recruiting. Typically, you want to see for a head coach of a college football program their first 3 years coaching and their first 3 recruiting classes to get an idea on how they're going to be for building this program. Well, year 1 under Kenny Dillingham, ASU wins 3 games, but they're in dogfights in almost every single game. There was a handful of games that could have been toss-ups. 4 games into year 2, you are 3-1. This is a team that has been tested. They've overcome adversity. There's a lot of room to grow, for sure. There's a lot of holes on this team, but they have shown a ton of growth in year 2. You have also seen those recruiting classes get better and better and better. 2026, this is a heck of a way to kick it off with a 4-star quarterback, a top 15 quarterback in the country, a top 30 recruit in the state of Texas, which, by the way, if you listen to the show, you know my thoughts on Texas high school kids. If they are a 4-star in Texas, they're a 5-star everywhere else. If they're a 3-star in Texas, they're a 4-star everywhere else. Jake Fette is a 4-star quarterback from Texas. That's pretty darn good. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback in the recruiting class. Obviously, there are 13 guys ranked ahead of him, according to 24/7. But to be a 4-star in the state of Texas is pretty good. You're also just showing that prowess to continue to recruit better and better. And Kenny Dillingham is very clearly building an identity with this team right now. And a guy like Jake Fette is taking notice, and he sees that Kenny Dillingham wants to go out of his way to spend some time with him, watch him play some football, and build that relationship with him. He's not going to be here until 2026. So we still have a year and a half to really get to know Fette, probably closer to 2 years, because I don't know what his academics look like. He could be an early enrollee, but I don't want to assume. Most people are not like able to reclassify or not reclassify to enroll early kind of thing. It's not super common. So we'll see. But bottom line, regardless of that, is this is a really exciting pickup. And of course, the last thing we got to mention is it is classic #Texas to Tempe. ASU wants to establish that connection with the state of Texas, one of the best places in the country to get high school football recruits. They've done it very well over their first 3 recruiting classes, and they're starting off their 4th with a heck of a way to do it. This is a really exciting pickup for the Sun Devils, and I'm hoping that you guys are excited as I am for all of this. Wherever you're getting your shows, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post content like this and every other day of the week as well. You can stay in touch by following me on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this extra breaking news edition, bonus edition, whatever you want to call it, of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will be back tomorrow to grade ASU's, or no, grading will be on Tuesday. Tomorrow, we'll be going through the good and the bad from the Sun Devils' loss to Texas Tech and the biggest takeaways from the game. I'll see you there. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.